Hi, it's Bedhead and BL and Mr. Bedhead. We're going to talk about episode 2 of the Untamed, and also we're going to start with a conversation around the D&D classes, if you will, that are present in the series.
I've had more time to reflect. I think, first of all, for those of you that have said, I love your take on D&D-ifying the show, I D&D-ify literally everything.
Yes.
Like when we're talking about like some political thing or somebody's boss or whatever, it's like, what alignment are they?
Yeah.
Oh wow, she really failed that skill check. That persuasion roll, she really biffed that one. Somebody eats it on a video.
They roll a one.
So anyway.
Oh, and I will say, adding to that, I was talking to Yosh about this because he gave us some feedback about classes that you agreed with. We'll talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. But I was saying to him, he's like, oh, it's so cute you guys are doing that through this lens. And I was like, no, this is just how we watch fantasy things.
Yeah, I actually, and I run D&D games professionally, right, and do a lot of that stuff. So, yeah. The use of gamification and rule systems to like explain or understand our world is just really...
Our favorite road trip game is... what's their alignment? So we like to talk about people and celebrities, things like that, and guess what their alignment is. And it's how we came to the conclusion that billionaires are evil. Anyway.
I could talk for literally hours about alignment alone, but talking about the classes specifically.
In the Untamed.
In the Untamed, I mean, the cultivators are just bards. I don't know why I didn't zero in on that. I know there were instruments in the first episode, and Laura's kind of told me some of that, but really they're bards, and the way that you can sort of parse out their differences among the different, not only clans that practice cultivation, but also individuals that practice cultivation, are the bard subclasses. So I can't remember which 4 they ended up going with for the newest edition of D&D, but it's like College of Lore, College of... I think Whispers, which is like the more roguey, kind of almost ninja-like one. And then there is the College of Swords and the College of Valor. And but there's also College of Spirits is one of the expansion ones. College of Glamour, like GLAMOUR, like illusion.
Yes.
And then there's also College of Creation. So there's a bunch of different ones. And that, in D&D, the way that that's sort of done is usually you go to a specific college, and that's what that is. The subclasses are different.
But it could be the clan.
But yeah, it could be the clan. It could be the personal preference. Just because it's called college in D&D, it doesn't mean you have to make up this college in your character's backstory.
Okay, well, hold on.
It could just be the vibe. It could be the, whatever your
right, because we can see, you've already been able to see how much Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian are really different. Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian, the lead characters, they're super different in their presentation, but also both have these high-level cultivation skills.
Yeah, so far, I would say Lan Wangji would be more it seems more universalist, but it's more like a college of lore, or he's sort of comes across as more holistic and well-studied in all maybe the different disciplines. But
that's a good assessment.
And part of this too is that Wei Wuxian doesn't have any of his dope gear yet.
Right. So because he's been reincarnated.
He's playing, on it. And were you impressed that the second he cut the bamboo, I was like, oh, we're getting a better flute.
Yeah.
It was. It up. Yeah. But yeah. So another thing that was interesting too, that I might end up going on a tangent. I don't want to get too many spoilers, but I keep on asking her very specific questions about the mechanics of the magic system and the curse. He's back. He has one more slash that he has to do. But what is? He seems pretty free now. So why is he more free once he does that? What are the specifics about that? And I don't necessarily want to know that. I haven't really been in the comments much because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I'm just getting highlight reel.
People know how I feel about spoilers. Where's the camera? Don't spoil in the comments or I'll block you. Well, and I will. No warnings.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not...
Don't worry. This is how I normally am.
I would choose to do it, but it's fine.
Well, you don't you haven't been spoiled by a lot of stuff because people are shitty.
Yeah.
I didn't start off this way. This is where I've come to be. Mm-hmm. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
It's our own fault for being on the internet, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway.
That's why I have to watch everything the second it comes out.
It's true.
That's why.
It's true.
That's the only reason. It's not because I'm
you don't want
hyper-focused
spoilers.
and obsessed with genre content.
No. Anyway. Okay, so we watched episode 2. So we've got bards with different classes, which is why they can present so dissimilarly. Your observation that Lanzan is well studied is very good observation. You're gonna see that a lot, like in the literal next episode.
Yeah.
So
I also thought it was pretty D&D the way he was able to like summon this spirit of like this dead general guy,
the ghost general.
Yeah, and that like the way that he played affected the thing's performance, right? Because like there's this thing in D&D with, and I think that, you know, it's become pretty tropey in general, like whenever you summon some sort of powerful entity, there's almost like a contract to that sort of summoning. Like if you are reckless with how you do it, if your summoning circle isn't like drawn completely perfectly, they can sometimes like figure out little cracks and ways to get out or ways to manipulate the situation. So, and you know, in that version of the summoning, that guy didn't seem to be too, you know, control of his faculties, but you know, like it seems like if he had boffed it more significantly, it could have been like even worse. Like that he would have just gone on a rampage killing everyone. You know?
And that he was clearly very powerful. Like because he just destroyed the dancing goddess.
Right.
And their spiritual weapons weren't doing anything to her.
Right.
Question.
Not even Dot Head Legolas.
Dot Head Legolas. Oh, yeah, the little guy who has a big ego, Jinling. Okay, so what I want to know is what was your observation of the guy that Wei Wuxian summoned? So we're talking about Wen Ning, the ghost general, is what he was referred to.
So
I'm curious what you thought of that.
I guess, I think, my impression of the ghost general, based on what they showed.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I guess I'm curious, I don't know if he's called the ghost general because of what he did in life or because he's, thought of as currently a ghost. I mean, clearly his, very pale makeup and black eyes, were designed to make him look alien, but I'm not sure if that's because he had some sort of demonic spiritual connection while he was alive, or if it's just that's because that's his current incarnation.
So you are assuming he's undead?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, you're correct.
Sort of I would say the undead that he most, based on power level and what I know about him, the undead that he most closely resembles would be a Death Knight from D&D.
Solid assessment.
Or some sort of powerful, because Revenant, because he clearly had his skin and stuff intact and everything. So
there's a lot more to come of him, and that's all I'm going to say.
Double entendre.
Who he was in life is important, but not yet. So there's a lot more to come from him. He's a character that grew on me, I'll say. Yeah. Okay.
I did think it was weird when they were all sort of meeting up in the woods. I was how crazy of a coincidence is this? That they're all they do have that one sort of throwaway line where they're just why are you out in the woods? But even the people that were already there before he showed up, I was what is happening right now?
Before Wen Ning showed up or before Jinling? Okay. When the guys were all stuck in the nets?
No. Oh. That at least, nets. Okay, that's, the nets. Yeah, again, we could talk for hours about the nets, but they show up and I'm okay, there's a little bit of a coincidence. And I had some questions about because he was clearly on this journey to, he's on a side quest, right? To sort of help out with whatever's going on the mountain. We're clearly not dealing with his arm scars at the moment.
Yeah.
But
because he left Mo Wei Yu's place to
and then I learned throughout the episode that the donkey's name is now Little Apple, so we of course had to have this little explanation for that, because I know that this donkey is a persistent. Is a mule or a donkey?
It's a donkey.
Okay.
Mules are large like horses. It will be he's a character throughout the story.
I think there's gonna be horse people that are gonna take issue with large like horses. I'm just gonna say. I think that they're small.
Those horse people are gonna have to deal with me.
Okay.
Because a mule is half a horse.
You just said they're tall like horses, though.
Yeah, because they're half horse.
So they're as big as a horse? A mule?
Yeah, mules are really big. Yeah. A mule is a crossbreed between a donkey and a horse.
No, I know that.
Oh yeah, they're big.
I just didn't know they were like as
They're
big.
often big, yes. Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah, anyway, that was a tangent. So back to the Untamed. Where were we? Oh, Little Apple.
Yeah, so we got that intro, and then I was like, wow, this is weird. These people are in the same place at the same time. And then, like, as they add more and more clans and people, I was kind of like... And I guess with some of the translation stuff, and there were some technical issues we were having with moving to a new platform.
Yes.
So, like, I didn't follow the fact that they were all on, like, this hunt.
Well,
and
okay,
there were these clans who were like, because they talked a little bit about the rules of the hunt or whatever. I thought they were just talking like in general rules when you're hunting these things, not that there was like this sort of competition happening.
So this is a good example where I think because it's a Chinese drama, like the politics of clans, what the clans mean, that they're also political entities with different levels of power.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm going to tell you something so a lot of it is unexplained, that less explained and definitely not for a Western audience.
Right.
So what you saw that one clan was all caught up in the nets. And then also, those nets were created by the clan of Jinling, the little kid who was a piece of shit, right? And Jiang Chang is his uncle, and he's like the leader of that clan, right? And so what you don't know, which is explained a bit more in the book, but I think it's very implied, because when I watched it, I was like, oh, yeah, this is clear, but I needed the deeper explanation to understand the cultural nuance, is that what's happening is that clan is very, very wealthy, and they're using a lot of very expensive
That's right.
magic.
They talked about how expensive the
400
nets were.
Yes.
And then when they said, oh, we'll reimburse you, he was like, that doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly.
Because it was a significant expense to them, but not to the other clan.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, and the other clans are like, this isn't fair. And they're like, fuck off. But it really isn't fair because they're using their wealth and resources in order to move the game for them. And all of that flies by really quickly. But it's actually like important explanation of the politics of the clans that you're getting right off the bat.
And then another thing that I didn't realize, but that I picked up on quickly in watching this episode, I thought that cultivators generally was a much more sort of, and I don't know if it's just this region of this fantasy world that's like this, but that cultivators were much less commonplace. Like when they were on the road, and the guy Wei Wuxian in mask with the mask on was just like, oh, fellow cultivators, I have like a question, like, oh, these are just like random travelers, but they recognize that each other are cultivators.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like common enough. Like they didn't appear to be part of any sort of elite clan or anything. They were just like some random family that had cultivators in it.
And I think maybe they were like guiding that family.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
And so it isn't like common to be a cultivator, but it isn't rare. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. But it's enough that it's like, okay.
And you're probably not going to do it if you're not, you would have to maybe have high power, like innate power, to be recognized and brought into a clan or born into a clan with cultivation status. So like kind of the lay folks, there's really not much cultivation happening. And what you also know and may come about is that cultivators are hired. And we saw that in the first episode with Mo Wei Yu's family had hired the cultivators to come in and deal with this ghost issue that they were having, right? So that's why the Lan clan was there with their flags and all of that was to deal with that. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's present across all like wuxia cultivation magic kind of fantasy novels. Like that's been true.
And Lanzan is the head of that clan, but he just wasn't involved in that mission initially because
that was a difference with the Viki subs. So thank you, commenters, for telling us to watch the Viki subs because they're way better. And you heard him
even to the point where like at one point they used a proper name for something, and then in parentheses it said alcohol. I was like, thank you.
Oh yeah, the Emperor's Emperor's Smile. It's what Wei Wuxian's always trying to get Emperor Smile. So, and it's a real booze, and apparently it's very strong and not very delicious. Anyway, the thing that was about those is you heard him called Second Young Master or Second Master Lan Wangji, and so he's not actually the leader. His brother is. You haven't met his own. He's the
okay.
second brother.
But anyway, the reason why he wasn't involved, though, is because it was like initially a low-level thing.
Yeah.
But they sort of called in air support or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
They were like, yo, this is OP for us. And can't.
He can just like teleport over or something.
Yeah, he flies on his sword. You haven't seen him fly on swords yet. Sick. Yeah, it's so awesome. It's really awesome. They have named swords. Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing. What did you think about Jiang Cheng's weapon?
Who is that?
He's the Wei Wuxian's mean brother who killed him. They're not literal brothers, but
the one on the cliffside that cut with his weapon.
So he had a sword, but did you see the scene with Wen Ning? And they were like, they remember they were arguing about how could Wen Ning be called. That's only the Yiling Patriarch can do that. Do you remember that scene? Because it was pretty important.
Which one?
It was
the most recent episode.
Yes, episode 2.
You're talking about when the young kid called his uncle over?
Yes, and that was Jiang Cheng, the same guy who stabbed Wei Wuxian in episode 1. Okay, yeah. And then there was a weapon that a whip. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that's right. They talked about how the purple whip didn't affect him or something. I didn't catch all the details.
Yeah, that's kind of important. So there's this. It's kind of a pivotal moment. So that whip, they said very briefly. Well, that whip can detect possession, so it can't be Wei Ying. It can't be Wei Wuxian.
But he's not possessed.
He's reincarnated.
He's reincarnated from the curse.
Correct.
Okay.
And so
it's like a loophole.
And you saw Lanzan protecting him. And he's like...
Interesting. So Lanzan has figured it out, though.
We're assuming so.
Lanzan, I mean, there was a look. He gave him fuck me eyes. I mean, he did...
Thank you!
Come on. And then,
And he also protected him with his body.
And so then the uncle started to realize, thought he had figured it out, but then it was
whipped him.
Then we have a plot armor oh, there's this whip thing. Oh, now I don't think it's him.
Right. And so now...
But he's probably still a little suspicious.
100%.
He's got some sus.
Well, it's been said that he's also looked for his body.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them.
There's been some underhanded comments from both of them hey, what?
Oh,
yeah, we haven't seen you around much. You've been, what have you been doing the last specifically 16 years?
Dig. Yeah. There's no love between them right now. The Lan clan and the Chen, is it?
And I still don't know what
Cheng.
Wei Wuxian's what I mean. I get that there's that scene that we get at the beginning and there's this big battle, but I don't actually know what his goal was. Why is he? Is it just power? Is it just is there some I mean, everybody thinks he was evil, but I don't know, he doesn't seem that evil. I mean,
that's what the series is about.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's why, and so now we've got some establishment that the vibe is that Lan Wangji knows that this is him, and or is at least very suspect, protected him, and we have that plot armor because the whip, which is a very powerful spiritual weapon that can detect possession, did not work. It didn't detect possession.
Does his sword become the whip, or is it a separate weapon?
Separate. Okay, yeah, you kind of pull them out of the spiritual plane. You summon them, the spiritual weapons. That's what in
College of Valid Bards could do that with their weapon.
So fucking hot shit, man. That's cool. Also,
so can Hexblade Warlocks, which you can make an argument for probably with some of them.
Agreed. It just as a side note, in Husky and his White Cat Shizoon, that's both Chu Waning and Moran have whip spiritual weapons, and they're twinsies. It's very romantic. But I think the whip ones are really cool because the visual of what they do with a sword and whip at the same time when they're fighting.
You can tie each other up and stuff.
They would do that. Yeah. Okay, so we've seen that spiritual weapon, we've seen swords, we've seen bardic magic with instruments. Pretty powerful bardic magic, right?
And we saw a stone golem. It wasn't a stone golem. It was a crazy god creature, possessing a stone statue.
Yeah, a bit more of a demigod kind of thing. Yeah. And then...
But if I were to put it against 8th or 9th level party, I would probably just use like Stone Golem stats. It's just like easier.
Correct. Yeah. And really we have a Wei Wuxian who is powerful. Like we've seen him do magic and things like that. And we've seen him have talismans. Daniel and I had a long conversation about talismans and the paper things that they use to cast spells. We've also seen Lanzan do his trademark mute spell.
Yep.
Because this is a disciplined clan. Right? And so now at the very end of the episode, we have traveled back in time.
I also had that little paper doll guy.
That was a talisman.
That was a talisman. I couldn't figure out what spell that was, though. It kept him down.
It did.
It wasn't quite paralysis, though. I don't know.
It was also kind of like a hold person.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we're going next. At the very end, we've gone back in time. And we see Wei Wuxian happy with Jiang Cheng and Jiang Cheng's older sister. And they're traveling with a clan to go to a lecture at Cloud Recesses. And that's what we know. That's where we ended.
Yeah.
So what my understanding is, because I told you about the book pacing, which I have a lot of criticism for.
Is that we're probably going to be in the past.
We're going to be in the past for a long time. And we're going to learn about Wei Wuxian's rise to power.
Kind
about
of like Dark Tower Book 5, which the entire book
is a flashback.
It's like the book starts with Roland like
at a
campfire telling an anecdote, and then you're like 3/4 of the way book, and you're like, oh, this is just the whole book. It's just this story.
It's the story.
Cool.
Yeah, so it bounces around in a way that I find jarring, and I think the pacing and writing is not good. And so I'm excited to kind of see this whole thing happen, and there's some scenes from the past that are really cool and exciting that I'm excited to see. So
yes.
I specifically have one monster that he fights where I asked people like, is this in the show? And it is, so I'm excited to see it. So yeah, we're gonna find out more of your questions about like, what's Wei Wuxian's deal? Why does everybody think he's evil? Why is he the Yiling patriarch? And what does he have to atone for? And who's he going to connect with when we come back to the present?
And how does Little Apple help him?
You know, Little Apple is often just some comedic relief. Actually, Wei Wuxian's like consistently really funny. Imagine okay, so Daniel and I often talk about how if we met when we were teenagers, I wouldn't have liked him at all. And why is that?
Because I was even more of a pretentious, unsufferable know-it-all back then than I am today.
And a class clown.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a very high charisma, extremely talented young cultivator who you saw in a brief scene is already making trouble.
Yeah.
Going to a lecture to study. How's that going to go? It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time.
I'm excited.
Yay! Let's go watch an episode.